Hi, my name's Ariana.
And my name's Ryan.
And this is
I Wear Grippy Socks, a mental health podcast by two know-nothing millennials from a seriously non-clinical viewpoint.
Though this episode may contain content that you may find disturbing, so please reach medical help if needed. Welcome back, guys. I'm glad you made it for another episode here with I Wear Grippy Socks. Today, the title of our program is going to be called The Bees and the Birds and the PTSD.
The birds and the bees
Wow.
and the PTSD. Get your dyslexic ass out of here. You messed up the whole rhyme.
Crap. Yeah, but you get it, right? Birds and the bees and the PTSD.
Good enough. So on today's episode, we are going to be discussing social media, the internet, growing up with the internet, the Wild West, its effects that it has had on not only our mental health, but the mental health of everybody around the entire world. I am currently on TikTok, and I have almost 250,000 followers. No big deal. I will say, I don't think that I really was prepared to have so many followers, but it is what it is. I post a lot of videos. My videos mainly are about my addiction to various substances and my journey through recovery. When I first got on TikTok, I was still using drugs pretty heavily, really. So I post about my addiction, my recovery. I try to make it funny. I like to use humor as a way to cope. It is my defense mechanism. I do not really know how to take anything seriously, I would say. And I don't know what it is. I know some people might find it hard to believe, but I have some people that leave negative comments on my videos. I don't understand what it is that they don't like about me. I feel like I'm very likable.
Some of the time.
Right. I feel like at least some of the time I'm pretty likable, but I get these people that leave all these negative comments. I've had people make multiple accounts where they just keep commenting a bunch of nonsense. They just leave hate. I don't really know what's wrong with these people. Don't you think you have some of those issues on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, definitely. So for those who sort of don't know, I did have a YouTube channel. Oh, let me just backtrack. His social handle is Recovery. He is really hilarious, and it is good. And if you're not following him, go follow him.
That's right.
Because he makes some really funny ones and definitely interesting about recovery and all that whole process. But for me, I did have a YouTube channel as well. We had almost like 11,000 subscribers, but this also, keep in mind, was back in like 2017. I did me and my boyfriend sailed the Caribbean. We went up like the whole island chain, but there was like a lot of pressures that came with the YouTube channel, and just kind of like even the comments and the way I was supposed to look or act or present myself. And it's kind of what part of the problem that, or maybe issue you would want to call it, I don't know, that really stopped me from being scared to post. Really, the PTSD, truly, a big chunk of it was just that pressure that people put on. Like, I will always remember, and I know a lot of the times, sometimes you have to remember, like, you're gonna get a million good comments, but there's always going to be that like group of people that come after you and are just absolutely just will tear you down. Like, and you probably have a million good ones, but it's just those like few or several mean ones that just stick. Like, I still remember the comment that like forever is ingrained in me is that someone put, I needed Jenny's Craig's attention, and I was it is definitely like that comment has been ingrained in me, and like it just sucks because I was also wearing like bathing suits a lot through the whole program, right? So like, especially on the internet, we're so ingrained that like the TNA, tits and ass, like that's what you need to be successful, at least for a girl, you know what I mean? Like, we're pushed so much that we have to show our bodies that it's like they shouldn't be coming there just to look at me. Like, I know obviously there's something about, we're all like humanly attracted to people or whatever, but like it's just sad that it's changed so much from going from, I'm just trying, here's my sailing journey, to now, how am I pushing my body to make it more views, more clicks, the clickbait. What's your like thumbnail? Is my boobs out enough? Is my ass out enough? And it got really like, also, just it wears on your mental health, because you just feeling constantly judged, the criticism, am I looking right? I would literally plan out like scenes so I didn't look a certain way, or I would make my boyfriend refilm something because I was like, no, I'm just like sticking out. I'm looking like a busted can of biscuits. So, it definitely has like just, it wears down over time. But this is like definitely starting coming back. I've taken like a hiatus or a break from social media, I would say, since the whole trip and the YouTube channel. So that ended like right at the end of 2017. So now we are back, we are live, and I'm trying to get more confident and courageous to post on social media again because I really have taken such a long break. But it's crazy how much though the internet and technology has changed like in our whole lifetime when you think about like the whole perspective, like us even having the ability to have a YouTube channel or a TikTok. Like when we were growing up, that was like never the case.
I know, it's like it's so crazy how much things have changed. I mean, I know obviously everybody says that, and I think it's weird too because like I feel like our age, yeah, we kind of grew up and evolved with the internet. I feel like at this point it's like taken on like another life form. But when we were growing up, I called my dad before this episode because I wanted to find out if we had computers growing up, because I can't really remember using computers probably until like middle school. Like we had one desktop computer in like the living room, and it was just me and my two brothers, and we'd be on AIM or whatever in the AOL chat rooms, and our parents would set this like 1 hour time limit, and me and my brothers, if my brothers tried to stay on their computer for 1 hour and 1 minute, it was gonna be a full on brawl.
War zone.
It was like a war zone. But I can remember, playing like Oregon Trail. I know we had a computer lab at school. I think it was one of those old computers, that you could just like put the floppy disk in.
Floppy disks.
I remember playing Oregon Trail. You're just sitting there in your like second grade class, and then next thing you know, you're hanging out, and then you're dying of a snake bite, or your family's dying of dysentery or whatever the hell they call it. People want to talk about like Call of Duty and violent video games now. They never played Oregon Trail. I mean, I'm telling you, it got very violent.
I know, that was kind of for me. So I would say my first like interaction with computers and the internet, or at least for sure computers, was kindergarten. Like immediately, so I went into kindergarten in 2000, so it's like fresh right off the bat, right? And I went into our school was new, so they had like computers. The first thing there, we had the computers, the Apple computers, and they were all the different colors.
Spoiled.
We were very fortunate, I will say. At least that I went to a charter school my kindergarten year, but we had from the get-go, we played like this roly-poly game. We had lots of like games, and I remember it's crazy. We've also been around enough, we went from like the floppy disk to to CDs to now USBs, and now we have these like flash USB. Really is like just
got
become
the cloud and stuff.
Yeah, it's really crazy the way things have like progressed. But I've always definitely been familiar around a computer. Like I've said in the past, so when I was in the third grade was when I found out I was dyslexic. And my parents took the action to put me in a private school so maybe I could get a bit more, better learning. And, they knew I was going to struggle a little bit, which, good for them. But by the time I was in sixth grade at the school I went to, we were required to actually have our own laptop. So I had the accessibility of a laptop or a computer from pretty like a young age, because they believed at the time especially that's what at the time what people were doing in college. So they wanted us to have computers to kind of like simulate the same thing. So college preparedness. So we were doing all our activity, we would bring out the laptops while we were in class, working on class. And like, this is kind of like the age, where things started getting, middle school, like it's middle school. Everyone started going through puberty, the whole like curiosity of it all. And I would say that's probably for me, it was around like 2005, 2006. And I think, that's when like the search engines really kind of started to come up, and we got definitely, I would say, a bit more curious. And, went a little wild at times.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I don't really like I feel like I learned a lot of stuff from computers and internet, you know. It's like when I was real young, I remember playing like typing games. I remember playing this game called Number Munchers.
Hey.
And I feel like I learned a lot of stuff through the internet, whether it is good or bad. Cause yeah, like I feel like around middle school, you know, you start once the your voice starts changing, you know, and your balls start dropping, things start getting a little out there. And in my house, I don't know that we ever really. I can't remember ever really talking about a lot of stuff. I think one of the issues that I have with the internet, at least I don't know how it is now for children, but I feel like back then, especially going to public school, you know, you hear these terms, you start hearing these different things, and then like so you start to get curious. And I don't really, you know, I'm from the conservative area where they teach abstinence only sexual education. They don't really teach, I know, a lot of the intricacies of sexual intercourse.
Mm.
So I feel like I definitely went to, you know, use the internet to look for answers, and I don't think that was really the way, because I feel like it's really tainted my views somewhat. But I don't know. How
Yeah.
about you for you?
Yeah, no, well, my family, so the one thing you guys will probably constantly hear over this is especially my father, um, we've always been more open about the topic with sex. My father, I've known about sex from a really, really young age, or at least like the idea. Like I actually recall a memory when I was like when I was 6, and my dad gave us, I grew up with, like I said before, 3 other step siblings slash sister, full sister, but pulled out a condom, gave us all a condom, was like, you guys are gonna need this if you ever have sex. And I pulled it out, and I blew it up like a balloon. Like I didn't know the concept, what he was necessarily talking about, like, but like he definitely was very always like informative with the topic. So like it you know, it's like when you're watching a movie and you're seeing all these, like, they're making the adult jokes, and like you're listening to them but you don't get them as a kid, and then you like rewatch the movie when you're older and you're like, oh my god, like that was in there, you know. And so I feel like I had the surface understanding, but I still was also a very naturally like curious kind of person, as anyone would be. And that also didn't help necessarily with the laptops. Like we said, we were really growing up in like the era of everything kind of evolving. I feel like, especially on the internet, we were literally growing up with the internet. And that kind of definitely led me to also do my own research. I would say definitely I'm more of a sexual being. I always have been from like a younger age. And I'd always been, I guess, mapping out my body, if you want to say, for a long time. And, you know, when we got search engines, I was very curious about wanting to learn more about masturbation and my own self. And I was definitely, you know, once again taught like your body's your temple. But, you know, parents only can go like, you feel so comfortable. And I think that's another question I would even like to ask people is like, when is that right time to really start talking about it? I feel like my parents definitely talked about it with me, but I don't know if we got any further than like the surface level. But I don't know necessarily where that next step is, you know? So I got onto these like I was reading like stories about like sex stories, even stories about like masturbation, and like, trust me, I was sticking things up there. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but you know, like you become a sexual. You're curious, and you feel awkward going to your parents, and you know, I don't know when the right time is. Like I said, we'd been talking for so long in my household, but I know so many people. Right? When did you guys even start talking about sex? When was the topic even brought up?
Honestly, I don't even really remember it. I think by the time it got brought up, it was like, oh, the cat was already out of the bag. Like, I feel like when I was like, you know, when you're real young, you got to jerk off to the J.C. Penney magazine. So, like, luckily, once the internet came out, well, it was kind of lucky in one sense, but I feel like I remember taking sex ed in 8th grade, but besides, I don't really remember I feel like by the time my parents went to talk to me about it, I was already learning a lot of the stuff like on the internet. Like I can remember just some real wild stuff, you know. I remember this dude, I can't remember what was his name, Uncle Bob or Pervert Bob or something. I was like 13 years old, and just talk, you just out here getting groomed. And like at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. Like it seemed pretty, I don't know, I was the kind of person, like, so my doctor, even, like, we would go to the doctor, and he was like a family doctor, and I'm like 15, 16 years old. The guy, you know how they ask if you've been drinking, if you do drugs, if you have sex. It's no. It's 100% no. Even still to this day, if I went to see that same doctor, I would not. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's such a big deal. I don't know why I feel like there's such a shame, like almost a shame. When I was young, I would steal condoms because for whatever reason, like I felt weird. I was like, this person's going to judge me.
You know I'm having sex.
No, they're going to know I'm using condoms like a damn...
Like too good.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I don't really remember. I think that I was just pretty much left to my own to like figure it out. And I think that I don't think maybe our parents realized that if they did not discuss these topics with us by a certain age, that we would then go onto the internet and try to find answers. Like I definitely learned about masturbation off the internet. I feel like it was off to the races ever since, and because like there's such a stigma behind it, coming from in the Bible Belt, you can't talk to people about it. It's just pretty much like they just assume that you're going to be abstinent until marriage. And I mean, the reality of it is that that's just not really how it works,
No, I would agree. Like, and once again, like such a different the way we were raised. Like, I mean, I remember, the first time that I was going to go have sex, I actually reached out to my mom and I told her, I was like, I think I'm ready to go on birth control. I had that like open conversation with her that, I was 17 and I'd been dating my boyfriend, who's now still my boyfriend. And I went to my mom and I was like, I think it's going to be time. So I want to use protection. And so like I grew up with the knowledge definitely to, I think, reach out for the help when I needed it. But I also, like, with the comment that you were saying, like, just like we were growing up with the internet, like, our parents were also growing up with the internet. Like, I don't think anyone saw all these dangers that became associated with the internet. We were kind of on their free will and nilly, and I don't think they even knew. And I don't know how much, a good question to even ask them, or if anyone's listening, like what kind of experience did you guys have at first? Like, so we're coming with our perspective from like a younger youth version. Like I can also imagine how it was for all these older adults to finally have such quick accessibility to even the the pornography and that kind of industry, and how it changed. It went from you had to go like into a store and rent a dirty pornography video to just 2 seconds Googling it and you have all this information, and it not even necessarily good information at all. There's a lot of things I think in the pornography business that is just it's very bad depictions of actually what sex is and how it should be viewed. Like, you have all these like cheesy like storylines associated with it, or like, it gets kind of wild, and how that has like genuinely affected us like long term. Like when I think about like the first time I had sex, lost my virginity to my boyfriend, it was like, oh my God, he rammed it in there. And I was like, oh, like, and I don't know if that was also partially of just what he had seen and watched and what he had taken away.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Probably.
like my boyfriend, his parents are definitely way more conservative. And I don't think he ever had the talk with his parents whatsoever. I don't think that conversation had even started as well until it's either too late or people don't even want to acknowledge it, like, bring it to the surface that their kids are having sex, or they're interested, or they're sexual beings. Like, we come into our sexualities, I'd you know what I mean, to be denying it. You're like 11, some kids, my mom got her period when she was 9, right? So some women are like, we're going through those processes at a younger age, and those things, our bodies are changing, and the conversations have to be started, because we can end up having such problems with when it becomes addictive, when it becomes unsafe, and we're going to our own resources. And once again, we've started to paint this picture of what sex is, and we haven't talked to our kids or maybe made it clear what we should be, discussing. I think it's just a really hard topic. Obviously, I don't know if what the right or wrong answers is, but I know we need to be talking about it, because there's just so many repercussions, I guess, that can be associated with it. I personally have only ever pretty much have had one partner. That's my boyfriend, like I said before.
That's crazy.
And I it's definitely bittersweet. I think you have, I don't know if maybe I was scared into it. Like I said, we're saying, like, my body image and what women have to go through, and the perception of like how people view our bodies or what it's supposed to look like. Even when you watch porn, like these women on these shows are like, mwah, like they look beautiful. You know what I mean? Like figures are like A1. I'm just saying, and so I feel like I got a lot of the, like, part of me didn't want to explore, also because I was like, I have to look this way, I have to be this way. A man's not going to want me if my vagina's not perfect, or if my figure isn't the right way, or they want this scenario, they want to be thrown on the table and fucked hard, like, you know what I mean? Like, once again, the perception of what sex is not, I think, what we're viewing.
Right. No, I definitely I think it's funny too, yeah, because you've obviously been with the same person for forever, and I'm like on the complete other end of the spectrum. Every halfway relationship I have ever had, I have cheated on the person. I mean, I have had intercourse with countless people I did not know their names. I could never find them again, and I really think that the internet and, like, pornography, I looked it up earlier, and the DSM-5, I forget what the hell that stands for, but they don't qualify, like, pornography or sex addiction as, like, a real addiction. And I just personally find that kind of hard to believe. I just now am getting to the point where I have opened up about some of this stuff with you, and it's just hard for me not to believe that it is an addiction. Like, I looked it up earlier, and it says if you feel powerless over how you act sexually, sexual choices make life unmanageable, you feel shame, embarrassment, and self-loathing, you promise to change but don't, and it becomes like a ritual to you. And honestly, I think that, I don't know what it is. I don't know why there's just such a shame about it. There's like such a tabooness to talk about. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you don't masturbate, you might be like Jesus or something. But I feel like, I don't know what it is, if it's just from the area I'm from that made me so uncomfortable, like, talking about these things. And I think that not talking about it is what even, like, fueled the fire, like
secrecy.
Yeah, the secrecy. You feel like you're getting away with something. And I think that there's a big chance. So obviously I have struggled. I mainly talk about my substance abuse addiction, but if I'm being completely honest, I wouldn't rule out the fact that my true addiction has really been, to pornography, sex, things like that. And I think maybe the substances were either an excuse to continue this risky behavior, or I use substances to cover up, how I feel about myself, because I personally am so torn between, like, sex isn't a huge deal. Everybody has sex. It's not that big a deal. And then part of me, on the other hand, is like the increased risky behavior, not using protection, getting prostitutes, multiple partners in a day, multiple partners in a time. I'm just now, I think, starting to come to terms with, I'm like in such it I'm like straight in between. It's fine, it's not a big deal, and it's like eats at me. It like eats at me every single day.
Yeah, and I could see that. Like, I think it's hard, obviously, with this topic in general, right? I think especially in the US, we put a lot of like voodoo and taboo around the subject. So already right off the bat, like, we don't talk about, we all hypersexualize bodies. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, I'm pro, like, pop your, like, breastfeeding women, pop your titties out.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Pop
like,
them out.
But we put even just that, something that's natural to your child, a very bonding moment. We are, oh my God, boobs, boobs, boobs. Why? I think it also starts there as a whole with the society, is that we can't, we're hyperized sexualizing everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Our school dress codes, oh my God, my shoulder's showing. The men are going to go crazy. Like, it's a shoulder. They're in high school. Like, don't get me wrong. Once again, our beings are supposed to be sexual, but like, you know, we take away the glamour, take away the you know, oh, the secrecy and the taboo of it. I think it would bring back to like people, it not being so, you know, like literally across the world they have like topless beaches, and that, you know, it's normal. Boobs are boobs. You have nipples, I have nipples, we all have nipples. Mine's just got a little more fat on it than yours. Like, it literally brings it to another level where we create these fantasies, and we create, I think, you know, more hype around it. And I personally also think we're sexual beings. As human beings, we are sexual beings. It's like that's part of our like natural like habit. And like you were saying, it goes into, I'm pro, like, I know it's like, I always feel weird because I haven't had like really any sexual partners besides the one. And I believe you can have, I'm team, go have all the sex you want, but as long as it's in a safe environment, both parties are willing and are accepting.
Or more than both.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you want, whatever way you want it, as long as it's safe. And like he was saying, I think it's hard when you get back into that level of addiction. And I think that also kind of goes borderline genetics and you know, who we are. Like I said, I think earlier, I was introduced to sex and the topic about it at a very young age. And I think I see a lot of similarities, like in our family. We're just more sexual beings, without a doubt. Like my father, like I said, we talked about it a lot growing up. Our grandfather, he's 100, and I swear that man, if his penis worked, he would be hopping on every waitress he saw.
100%.
Love him, and hopefully you guys will be able to hear him. But he is like, the man is wild. Our grandma passed now almost 3 years ago, but he if it could work at 100, he'd be going for it. And so I think there is a part that it is somewhat genetically adapted. Maybe that's why also in my household we did talk about it sooner. I was never, once again, I want to clarify, never put in any awkward situations in my family. It was, you know what I mean? This is where it gets hard, because when you start talking about it with kids and the topic, it can then be viewed, I think, as, you know, where's the line of being a pervert? And you're tiptoeing on that line.
Right.
And if we don't talk about it while we're young, I think encouraging kids, you know, your body's your temple. You can touch your body, and only you. Encourage for kids to be, you know, not like push it, but if they're masturbating at a young age, like,
don't shame them.
No, I 100% agree. Like, you know, to be quite honest, so like the first time I started exploring my body, I was 6, around that age. And I know that's a bit younger, but like, I was exploring my body. I was making those decisions. And maybe that's also like on the long term, because I've only been with one person, and I've been like, my body's my temple. Like, I know how to satisfy myself better probably than anyone else does, right? Like, you know what I mean? And I've learned my body. I don't know if that's changed those sex craving. I'm definitely more of a sexual being. I still masturbate quite often. I don't think we should be shunning masturbation. Masturbation is a-okay. It's your body, once again, your temple. And it definitely gets complicated when you start adding more partners. Where's the risk? Has it, you know, how many partners have you been with? And once again, if you're having multiple partners, I'm do your thing, but safely. And I think that's the difference, is when it becomes the risk, the secrecy,
right,
that drive, and how that can have us such a big mental effect on us. You know what I mean? Like, just perspective of sex, how we're supposed to view it. And it really is not, we're so confused, especially when we first get introduced to sex. Our parents don't know how to talk about it. There's nothing at school that talks about it. And I get it. I don't deny it. Like, it's a weird conversation to have.
It is.
But that's why we want to have this conversation now. Right. It's like, how do we talk to kids better to get them maybe set up for a better longevity for, you know, for their bodies, and so, or the next person's body. How do we, I don't know, where's the line of talking and also, like, you know, praise. You know, it's such a strange topic.
No, it definitely is. And I don't know, I think part of, like, maybe even being a man growing up, you know, you're just like, with all your buddies, it's who can sleep with the most people. You're just everybody. It's like this macho, like, and I don't know. And really looking back, I mean, it's hard to even look back, and I have difficulty talking about a lot of the things I've done because, I mean, Jesus, it was just. I mean, I've had people that cared for me. I'm in relationships with them, and I would just cheat on them like it was nothing, and like part of me is like, is it a moral failing? Like, am I a bad person because this happened, or is it addiction in another form that I just haven't come to terms with? I think that it's tough too, especially because a lot of, like I said, it's not officially qualified as like an addiction, but I find it hard to believe that if you're going, if your whole life revolves around a certain thing, and in my life it certainly has, I find it hard to believe that that's not an addiction.
Yeah, addiction's hard, and I think that's the it's a hard get it, but anyway, but with sex or any sort of thing, the level of I believe everything is okay in moderation and in small amounts, and addiction can be such a struggle because when do you know that you've gotten across the line? And I guess that's obviously something's first step is saying that you have crossed the line. I know you said you go constantly going back and forth, like, is it a problem? Is it not a problem? And even starting questioning that is also, I don't know, I guess the first step of also realizing if there's an issue. Sex is just one of those topics that it definitely needs to be talked about at a younger age. It needs to be talked about, normalized. We need to stop overly sexualizing things, especially in movies and in the portrayal of things. And even in women, like you were saying, for you in high school, right? Your buddies are all together. And even past high school, like the body counts, like, yeah, man, I did this and did it. And then all of a sudden you look at females and it's like, yeah, I've slept with 2 guys. And they're like, oh my God, you whore.
Slut.
Yeah. And it's like, what the hell? Like, but I hate that. I hate that women can't be sexual beings. I hate that it's only okay for men to be sexual beings. But as soon as a woman is a sexual being, she's a whore, she's a slut, she's been with too many men. And it's like not even close. Once again, as long as those were all safe, mutual interactions, no harm, no foul on any premises. And once again, I sound also, I guess, more crazy because I literally only have the one partner. But like, I'm so pro like open relationship.
That's so crazy. I mean, only one.
Yeah.
Like legit,
so I guess also depends what you classify as like sex and
right.
You know what I mean. Like I would say when I first started like experimenting with guys, I guess going
Damn,
my to be quite open, my first hand job was at the movie theater. Yeah, be careful at movie theaters. That's all I'm saying.
That's the place. That's where I got my first one.
I'm like, yeah, it's you know what I mean. But you're going like secret around like this. At that time, I was 14, but I definitely had been with a couple, not been messed around with a couple guys before I was 17. But when I was ready to actually have like sex, like I said, I was 17 years old and with the same guy, was ready to get him on the birth control because we had those talks. I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure we did use a condom. This is almost like 10 years ago now. So I'm like,
that's good.
Yeah. But we did try it. He literally like whammed and bammed twice and I almost cried. It was horrific. I was kind of like, yeah, we got to redo that, obviously. And he knew immediately too. And we went back and we communicated about it. Literally, we talked about what had happened. And like, the like following weekend when my mom was away, we redid it and we actually had SpaghettiOs right afterwards, and now it's become like our thing. So we finally would joke and we'll eat SpaghettiOs now. But besides the point, but it was really like, I feel like a healthy standpoint because I do believe I was talked to about it at a young age. I don't know if I necessarily felt comfortable discussing those topics with my parents though, like very, very surface level, but I never necessarily felt a fear of speaking with them. So I think they did do that, I guess, an injustice on that part for me and my sister. My sister is even very a sexual being. And I think that's also goes back into the genetics. Like, we, like on my dad's side of the family, like we were saying earlier, we're just more sexual beings. My dad was with one woman for a long time. My stepmom, they're no longer together, or ex-stepmom, I guess. But a lot of their relationship, he'll tell you, he has had some of like his best sex was with this woman, and how addictive and how that was enabling the relationship was super toxic. And I've heard people say like the best sex though is the most toxic sex.
That
You know
is
what I mean?
true.
So I don't know. It's just so hard. Like sex can be, there's lust, there's love,
Right.
and there's so many levels of sex, and it has such a big impact on how we process things, our mental like stability with it in a relationship, like how we know to in the wants and your needs and addressing that with your partner or even the person that you're in the moment with. And there's so many layers. There's so
Right.
many layers of sex.
See, I'm still at the point, like, so obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but I am single. And part of the reason I would say that I am single is because I know if I'm in a relationship, my behavior has never stopped. I have never stopped doing the same things. The only thing that has changed is I am now hurting and lying to one individual. I have this real problem too with I will ruin a lot of platonic friendships by trying to make it sexual, if that makes any sense.
100%.
Like I'll have, and I feel, and I just feel like I feel so guilty. I feel all this shame. And I mean, another thing too is just still trying to figure out, I don't know if my behavior is because of like lack of opportunities. Like I've talked to you before, I mean, I've experimented with my sexuality, and I don't know, a lot of times, it was with prostitutes, with random people off the internet, and am I doing that? Am I just like striking at the opportunity because I don't have that many opportunities, or is it like actual like obsessive compulsive? And I lean more towards the second. I feel very strongly that it is not
Healthy.
Yeah, I feel like it's just not healthy.
Yeah.
One of the things earlier, it said, yeah, like cheating on your partner is a sign. Okay, we got that one. Pregnancy, I've had pregnancy scares. Well, not me personally, but people I've been with.
Close enough.
STDs, I do have HSV1 and HSV2. Like my joke says, it's not a joke. So, like, the more research I'm doing, I'm like, I don't care what anybody says. I feel very strongly that it is an addiction. And I think that the tabooness of it, like, even the few times I've talked to you about a lot of this stuff, I feel like a weight has been lifted, off my shoulders, because it really is. It's the secrecy, it's the embarrassment. And I'm at the point now, I don't care. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of all this stuff that I've done, but I cannot do anything about it now. And I think it's just important that we talk about these things in order to move forward and to heal.
Well, yeah, and I think once again, it just goes back into normalizing it. And to be honest, a part of it, I think for you, maybe possibly could be for you. You've always never had to struggle also with getting it, if that makes sense. Obviously, you've paid or whatever, you've done those kind of things. But
I am super hot.
Some might say that. I don't know personally. I'm not judging at all. But some might say, the charisma that you have at times, that also when it becomes so easy to get, and I guarantee you, obviously, then there's times where it maybe not be as easy, but like that. When people also start throwing themselves at you, I think, partly part of the little mini fame, micro influencer you become on TikTok, and the way that also turns into, people are throwing themselves at you, or,
honestly, it has been super difficult, like trying to, because I mean, I was always like sort of popular-ish, in my hometown, but like to me, it's a whole nother thing when it's like online. I mean, I have even fairly recently installed porn blockers on my phone, and what's messed up. So I've tried to talk about this. One time I posted on my Snapchat, I was like, I strongly feel like I have an addiction to sex and pornography, and people they thought it was just the funniest thing in the world. I was like actually I felt bad. I was actually like
Vulnerable.
trying to like look for like comfort. People thought it was hilarious. People sent me pictures afterwards. You know, it's like it's hard to
because people don't want to believe it. I think that's the other thing. You know what I mean? It's not a real thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if we don't talk about it, then it's not a real issue. It's
Right.
not a problem. And I think that's how a lot of people though go so long even without getting help, especially in sex addiction or anything like that, because it's already extremely taboo. You know, I think it's one thing if you're coming out, yeah, I'm doing drugs. Okay, yeah,
Right,
makes
right. I
sense,
got
whatever.
no problem talking about smoking meth, but yeah, like if I talk about like experimenting with my sexuality or like having herpes, even I'm like, yeah,
People like, you know?
I'd rather talk about putting meth in my butthole, which I talk about all the time.
Which is crazy. Like, I think
know.
to me that's more absurd, and especially maybe it's once again goes back to the way I was raised. But it's
Right.
like, but you know, how are we supposed to? This is why, you know, picking this topic and really kind of going out to, you know, picking this one as one of the first things we talk about, I think is so important, because it has from such a young age has such a big impact on us for our whole lives, how we were going to view our future relationships, how we were going to treat our partners, or, you know, if there is addiction or not, or how we, you know, make things, how we view things. It's such an important aspect in from, you know, from a young age. So as soon as someone starts, you know, touching themselves, it's crazy to think the importance, I think, of talking about sex. I had a couple of friends that, like, their parents knew they were actively having sex, and they were actually having sex and did not want to use. I'm so, once again, I think it's just how maybe I was raised. It goes back to that. But like, I'm like, why wouldn't you tell your parents you need to get some contraceptive? Why wouldn't the parents talk to them about contraceptives? Like, I was just so, I've also been on birth control since I was 17, literally since the time I told my mom I was going to have sex. I've been feared to have a baby. I want a baby. But when it's the right time to have the baby. You know, I've seen so many of my friends get pregnant. It's because they would never talk. Their parents didn't talk to them about using contraceptives, or the guys, you know, oh, we don't need a condom, or I get it. It's like, it's hot and heavy in the moment. That's not something that you want to do, is whip out a condom. It kind of ruins the moment. Sure. But like, if we from the get-go, I actually, there's this girl on TikTok. I gotta remember her name. She's amazing. She does a great job about like breaking down like the taboos of, sex, and she mentioned on there about we should first teach men when they first start playing with themselves to wear a condom while they masturbate, right? So two eliminates two things, right? You
Actually,
clean up, and it's just like you're getting your dick's desensitizing to it. So it's like, and you're gonna go grab it every time. So if you like train your brain, I don't know, this is something
Pavlov's dong or something.
something like that. There you go.
Now, one time I cheated on my girlfriend, and I left a condom on the floor, and so she knew that I had been cheating on her, but I told her I was jerking off into it, and then she believed me. And then I had to come clean. I was like, damn, I can't believe she actually believed that.
One.
Like,
well, maybe if we educated our kids to do it at the beginning, maybe she would. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Maybe.
I'm just saying. You know, I think it just starts at the beginning. I think who knows where our addictions or our sex lives will lead us to, you know, from, you know, when we're older. I think it's just, we got to start talking about it at the beginning.
True.
We got to tell our kids to, I think, be, you know, your body's your temple. When someone says no, it means no, and you have control of your body, whatever way you want to touch it or view it.
Right.
But having those like actual like connections with people, understanding what sex is. Sex is not always about like being in love. It also can be about lust, but there's about safety and like taking the right measurements, you know.
Right.
But like sex, we just gotta end the stigma also about talking about sex, and that's really important to me, I think.
I would like to reiterate also, if you are a young man and you are, because I feel like as a woman, it is encouraged for you guys to talk about and even be open with your sexuality. I would like to say, as a man, while it is frowned upon, I am here to say I don't give a shit anymore. I will talk openly, because someone might be going through something similar. You know, we grow up in the Bible Belt, and it's like, to me, honestly, there have been times where I was like, if people find out about that I've experimented with my sexuality, I've honestly been like, I'll kill myself. I will straight up. I think for me, moving out of my hometown has been a big game changer. But also, be careful, people. There is pornography cannot be an addiction, allegedly, but be careful, people. Please do not follow in my footsteps, because things get a little weird and it's just not cool. And you don't want herpes, man. Herpes is for life, man. Use a rubber. I mean, come on, people, use a rubber. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I didn't think perfect time. Just safety, safety, safety. You know, sex is a prevalent in all of our lives, but be as conscious. You know, more as cautious as possible, and you know, listen to your partner, whoever you're with at that time, and make sure it's consensual and everyone's like there to have a good time. And I hope that this will maybe spark a conversation in people's homes, and
That's right.
and you guys can talk about it, even with, like I said, with the younger kids. I know it's per person, per household, however you address it, but you got to start young, you know, and I don't think it's a bad thing to start that conversation.
I agree for sure. Yeah, so thank you, Ariana, for another great episode of the Birds, the Bees. Well, it's of I Wear Grippy Socks. This episode, the Birds, the Bees, and the PTSD.
Yeah.
Any last remarks?
No, I think have fun out there, but just be safe.
Be safe,
and
people.
moderation, and you know, just start talking to people and use protection. Use protection. If anything you get away from listening from this is at least just be as safe as possible out there.
That's right. Have fun, but be safe. All right.
See you next time.
See you next time. Over and out.